Nice and loud. You can put it right in the bowl. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Spencer. Good morning. Everyone's so friendly. Thank you for sounding the bowl, Spencer.
Good morning, everybody. I invite you to rise in body and spirit for our gathering song, which is Let Me Believe. We will sing through the words as they are up on the screen, and then you are welcome to choose the part that you like, and we'll keep singing it for a while. All three of those parts fit together. We have a few singers who will be facing you to help you out. And then when you see me give a big hand gesture, that means everyone should return to listen, and we'll end with the words, listen.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Pam Berenbaum. I'm your worship associate today, and I'm really excited and honored to be assisting our worship leaders, Mary Hadley and Jason Duquette Hoffman, members of this congregation and really strong advocates and workers for social justice. And social justice is our theme today. We're going to have also some special music today. I think if this Sunday, we might actually be the only UU congregation in the world that's going to have live steel drums and live bassoon in the same service. So I think that's actually like, how cool are we? I give greetings to all of you who are in this room and those of you who are on Zoom. For those Zoomers, you might have more people than usual today, given the cold. And also greetings to people that might watch the recording later on. And I offer a special welcome to those of you who might be visiting for the first time. We're really glad that you're here, and you are welcome no matter what your background or identity is. And if you are here for the first time, we would love it if you would fill out one of these blue sheets. They're available right outside the center doors in the foyer, and that will give us your contact information, and we can stay in touch with you. And if anybody has a particular concern that is private but needs attention from one of the ministers or the caring committee, then please fill out one of the pink cards. And if you have a joy or a concern, a milestone or passage, you can fill out a yellow card, and we will read those after the offering. We only read the yellow cards. Okay. Also, if you would benefit from hearing assistance, you can see the tech team back in the far corner who's waving at you right now. We've got some earpieces that you can use. And on the order of service, the songs are marked with an asterisk. And the asterisk means that you can stand up if you would like to, and a lot of people do, but also you don't have to stand up. I'm not going to stand up. So anyway, it's totally up to you, but that's what the asterisk means. So I mentioned that I'm the worship associate. That means I'm on the worship team. And there are lots of teams of people here at CVUUS that make it all possible. And it's not possible to thank all the teams. So we're kind of taking turns on the worship team. And today we want to lift up and thank the landscaping team, who literally are willing to get their hands dirty to make CVUUS a better place. And on a personal note, I want to say that I always appreciate the hostas that line the path from the parking lot to the door. My grandmother's favorite plants were hostas, and I think of her every time I walk past those hostas when they're in their full glory. So the land that we are gathered on right now was seized from the Western Abenaki people by European colonizers. The native people of this region were disrespected, dishonored, and robbed of the homeland that they had carefully stewarded for so many centuries. And we have a lot to learn from the native people's spiritual relationship to the land and the waters of the Champlain Valley. And as a congregation, we are committed to learning more about their history and their culture, to try to build a more peaceful and just relationship with them, and to help repair the damage that's been done. So with that, I'd like to invite Julia up to light the chalice. Thanks, Julia. Okay. There you go. And please join me in reciting the words of the chalice, which are on the order of service and also the screen. The chalice we light today is a symbol of our faith. It binds us together as one people, a reminder that our strength is in our shared hope for the world, and that our common work is the creation of beloved community among ourselves and in the world.
The opening words this morning are called Sacred Descent by Reverend Michelle Collins. And we picked our opening and closing words independently, but we both picked Reverend Michelle Collins today. Welcome, all who are restless for a world renewed. We come carried by ancestors who refused the silence of despair and dared to sing a new song. Their courage whispers through us still. Today, we resist by showing up together. We resist by keeping faith for what is not yet. Our gathering is itself an act of sacred dissent, calling us to rise and unite as co-creators of a freer tomorrow.
I am so happy to have Kate and Dorothy and Mary play steel drums with me on this cold morning. I think it's a wonderful thing to hear on a cold morning. And I wanted to say about the song Yellowbird that it is based on a folk melody from Haiti. And so talking about social justice, of course the history of Haiti is full of resistance and instability and also resilience. And one of the Haitian proverbs that I read is, behind the mountains, there are mountains.
Hello. Why is that always surprising to me? My name is Jason Duquette Hoffman. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a member here of CVUUS, a former worship associate, newly the chair of the new board of Green Mountain Justice, and admittedly a relative ghost in this space of late. Some of you may recognize me. Some of you may not recognize me at all, and that may be mutual. To those of you whom I do not know, it isn't personal, at least not yet. I'm joking. I'm a Vermonter. Vermont is where I feel connected to land, to people. Whilst my young parents and their hippie friends came of age together in a place that was holding desperately to the mores of a disappearing ethos, I grew up wandering the rocks and the streams and the trees of the forests above 1,200 feet on the ridgeline between Northfield and Moortown, Vermont. And if your phones are in worship mode, feel free, if you're curious, to look that up on your map app right now. Like many, and unlike more, I stayed in Vermont as an adult. I attended UVM for my undergraduate and graduate work, and I, like many or most Vermonters, have continued to work multiple jobs to remain in this place that I love, that is my home. I met here and had the tremendous good fortune to become the spouse of the most remarkable person I know, who takes her 7th-generation Vermonter stonecutter father's work ethic far too seriously. I am the constantly amazed and bemused father of 3 brilliant, fun, adventurous, inspiring, and admirable. This is a tough week. Gen Z humans who give me hope for our future. I'm privileged to be friends with thoughtful, loving, adventurous, and joyful people, and I am the steward of 2 delightfully weird dogs who have figured out how to play in the woods with me in every season and manner I choose. I am neurodivergent, I am nerdy, I am polygamorous. For those of you who aren't paying close attention, that's polygamorous. I love all sorts of different kinds of music. Okay, moving on. Recovering bibliophile. Yeah. And now that I've tested my new LinkedIn bio on you, here's a fun fact that you may not know. I am only professionally extroverted. I am actually an introvert. Generally, I shy away from large groups, actually any groups. I sneak out of parties to go home. I'm hesitant to meet new people, generally not very forthcoming when I do, and I really despise talking on the phone for anything longer than a few minutes. If you've tried to be on a Zoom meeting with me, you know. And so why am I, an admitted introvert, showing up today for the first time in, well, actually, I don't know how long, to talk with you about connection? Surely the irony is not lost on any of us. Well, it's for several reasons, really, but I think the most central reason is that we find ourselves in a moment when a constellation of forces and circumstances have conspired to drive an epidemic of deep disconnection that is not just concerning, it is, as we are watching in real time, becoming fatal. It is an epidemic that I think this gathering of folks has some role in disrupting. To my chagrin, it turns out our personality traits can't overcome a fundamental underpinning of our biology. We are social creatures. Some of us thrive in high contact spaces, some of us thrive in tighter, more intimate spaces, but we all need to connect. It is, I expect, why many of you, maybe all of you, are here today. But social connection, it turns out, is not only desirable, it is a proven determinant of health, elemental to our survival and our ability to thrive. And yet, today, in a time when we are more connected globally than at any time in our history, there is a crisis of social connection that is not only culturally problematic, but an existential threat. This is true around the globe, but particularly true here in the US, and painfully clear right here on the streets of our town and around our country, our county. Though we are indeed gathering here somewhat in defiance of this trend, we are also participants in it, and it's getting worse. I want to take a few minutes to describe the scale of this problem, to make it more plain, locate the implications for us here, and especially to tease out some critical nuances in it. But don't despair, this isn't all doom and gloom. Understanding this landscape is the first step to rebuilding an ecosystem. We'll also talk about how we might begin to defy this pattern, what are the antidotes to this toxin, and where we might find opportunities for ourselves. And later, Mary is going to take us through not only what this congregation has done, but what it might imagine for its future. First, let's set the context for where we find ourselves right now. Rich, you can advance to the next one. If one turns on the news, opens a social media feed, or simply walks outside, it might seem like we are in an unprecedented time. People are distrustful of one another on the street. We stay home from social events to protect our peace. Our political systems are in chaos, and the world, or much of it, is almost literally on fire. Economically, politically, culturally, civically, we seem to be unusually isolated, fractured, and alone. And what is going on? Let's start with a brief bit of data. If you were paying attention, you know I have a graduate degree, and I work in higher ed, by the way, so if you knew this was coming, hang on to your pocket protectors. We're about to nerd out up in here. Robert Putnam and Shayla Romney Garrett, social scientists at Harvard, decided to dig into this, and as it turns out, we've been here before. Putnam and Romney Garrett identified 4 key questions, asking whether in the last 125 years, this country has moved toward more or less economic equality, more or less collaboration and compromise in politics, you're sensing where we're going here, more or less social cohesion, more or less altruism, or a sense of common good. And this is what they found up here. They call this the I-we-I curve. Those are those 4 questions plotted over time. Now, Putnam and Romney Garrett have their own analyses of why this happened, which you can read in their book, and which you may or may not find compelling. I don't necessarily. But this data is stark and compelling on its own. This visual is useful, I think. What these curves show is that all 4 of these questions have tracked remarkably consistently together over the last 125 years. They started out with a historic low just after the Civil War and trended roughly upward through and until about 1960, when all 4 measures began to precipitously decline. And now we find ourselves in a time when all 4 measures are near or below their pre-1900 levels. While we may think of the Gilded Age as a time of wild individualism, economic disparity, and social stratification, we are in fact even worse off now. Economic equality is lower than the Gilded Age. Social cohesion, lower than the Gilded Age. Political partisanship and vitriol is even lower, coming in at Civil War levels. Cultural altruism and sense of public good is at its lowest point in the last 125 years. These data are not confirming what we're seeing. They're telling us that it's actually worse than we think. And it can be summed up thusly. In this time when humans around the globe are more interdependent than ever before, we are historically disconnected. This deep disconnection isn't just a collection of amorphous social ills, it has profound individual implications for each of us. Disconnection is an urgent public health concern, one that the Surgeon General has called an epidemic of loneliness and isolation. In its report, Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation, creative, the U.S. Surgeon General's advisory on healing effects of social connection and community, the Office of the Surgeon General said, long quote incoming, you ready? Quote, "The lack of social connection poses a significant risk for individual health and longevity. Loneliness and social isolation increase the risk for premature death by 26% and 29% respectively. More broadly, lacking social connection can increase the risk for premature death as much as smoking 15 cigarettes per day. In addition, poor or insufficient social connection is associated with the increased risk of disease." I gotta move this, I'm sorry. I know that's, yeah, thank you. Including a 29% increased risk of heart disease and 32% increased risk of stroke. Approximately half of U.S. adults report experiencing loneliness, with some of the highest rates among young adults. And these estimates indicate that loneliness and isolation are more widespread than any other major health issue of our day, including smoking, 12% of U.S. adults, diabetes, 14.7%, and obesity, 41.9%, and with our comparable levels of health risk and premature death. And despite such a high prevalence, less than 20% of individuals who often or always feel lonely or isolated recognize it as a major problem. Surgeon General isn't the only one noticing. In, quote, The Friendship Recession, The Lost Art of Connecting, Harvard Kennedy School scholar Carolyn Bruckman observed, quote, the data paints a stark picture. According to the American Perspective Survey, the percentage of U.S. adults who report having no close friends has quadrupled to 12% since 1990. No close friends. While the percentage of those with 10 or more close friends has fallen by nearly threefold, and the foundations of the crisis were laid long before lockdowns. We cannot blame COVID for where we are. We are increasingly choosing convenience over connection, comfort over community. We are commenting, not communing. We criticize, but do not participate. We go on social media to share our lives, showing off, not showing up. And finally, we are donating, we are retweeting, but we are not volunteering, we are not participating, and we are not doing. Hang on. That last one was sneaky. Isn't there a whole discourse out there about how community organizations increasingly find donations are more productive than volunteers? Have you all experienced that? Anybody? Yeah? Doesn't it take longer to orient volunteers, more time to manage them, generally seem harder than it is just to collect money to support professional staff who can do this work really well and thoughtfully, right? How many of us are in nonprofit in here? Yeah, this rings bell? Yeah? Yeah, it does. Sure, it's all entirely true. And why might that be? What are we missing as a result? What does it mean when we outsource our involvement to professional staff? I'm not saying that donating is not a good idea. I'm not saying it isn't currently more preferable to volunteering for many organizations. That's true. I hope you donate as much as your budget allows, and as often. But really, there's something that we miss when we contract for and outsource our virtue to professional staff, something important. Because we can't, as T.S. Eliot reminds us on a previous slide, which I probably blew right through, sorry about that. We can't escape the darkness by dreaming up systems. Systems so perfect we needn't to be good. When we outsource to systems, we are missing that opportunity to be good. We are missing out because the mess, the chaos, the discomfort, and the awkwardness of actual connection are also, it turns out, a pathway to thriving. Bruckman says, quote, I saw this firsthand in research conducted while studying loneliness. I teamed up with a couple classmates and hosted a Hot Ones challenge where a group of strangers sat down together to eat progressively spicier wings while answering personal questions. That's a fascinating combination. What started as mild discomfort quickly escalated into chaos, people sweating, laughing, and rolling on the floor in pain. But something else happened too. By the end of the night, these strangers felt like a bonded group. The shared experience of struggling through something novel and slightly painful had created instant camaraderie. But wait, aren't we here doing all this right now? Isn't that what we're doing? Aren't we connecting socially right now, right? Why are we worried about this? Aren't we bucking the trends? Aren't we radicals in this space doing this now? No, actually, sorry, we're not. I'm going to get into that a little bit more here so you understand what I mean by that. What we are sitting here in this space at this time is actually emblematic of a widening class divide and social connection and access to public spaces and community space. As we think about what we do with this incredible building that we have created and sustain. In their 2024 report, Disconnected, the Growing Class Divide in American Civic Life, Daniel Cox and Sam Pressler report on stark class differences in social connection, access to public spaces, and close connections related to community space access. It turns out, when you have access to community spaces, you make community connections. If you don't have that, you don't have them. We are here for each other in this space right now. We are. We are helping each other. We are supporting one another. We are sustaining connections. And we are doing all of those counter-trend things for each other. And while we do that, we are leaving others behind, literally out in the cold. Well, that felt a little harsh, didn't it? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm really not. Because I'm here with you. Let's take a pause for a second, check in with our bodies and reconnect. Close your eyes. Come on. We like embodiment exercises, don't we? Where you use. Let's go. Okay. Take a deep breath in. Hold. Let's release that. One more. Nice and slow. Take a second. Be in your feelings. All right, check back in. Let's go. Let's move forward together because I'm not just here heckling like Waldorf and Statler from the Muppet Show. We're actually building something. So, trust the process, right? Well, it turns out that we are, in fact, in a connection drought of historic proportions. We already have the tools and the foundation that we need to turn that big old frown of a graph upside down. What Romney, Garrett, and Putnam call the upswing, that's the upward shape at the beginning of that graph, they think we're ready for another one of those. Maybe we are. What that is a sea change of connection. It is a building, growing upswell of realization and rebuilding, reconnection and renewal that is at our fingertips. And it starts with something really incredibly simple, but incredibly powerful. It starts with curiosity. As you now know, I am a nerd, but instead of bringing you through even the executive summary of Swan and Carnelli's study on curiosity and its connection to 5-year survival rates in older adults, I'll just simply say, it turns out curiosity can literally save and extend your life. And I'll share a more relatable anecdote from Scott Shigeoka at Berkeley, who's a regular speaker and TED Talk pontificator on the power of curiosity. Scott said, quote, "I wanted to feel less scared and angry all the time. So in 2019, I quit my job to spend 12 months on the road, living out of my car, showering at Planet Fitness, and meeting people I'd never normally encounter as a city-dwelling, liberal, Asian-American, spiritually queer professor and researcher from Hawaii." Whew, that's a mouthful, his words. "Through this journey, I realized that there is a path to us overcoming the disconnection and division so pervasive in our country. Curiosity. I learned that curiosity is a practice, something we need to use every day. And when we learn to go deep with curiosity, it can be the key to unlocking positive well-being and relationships in our lives." But it isn't just Scott in Berkeley who's feeling this way. Research also shows that despite these declines in social cohesion and the fracturing of our social fabric, people are hungry for connection across difference. Citing a recent report, journalist Sahar Habib Kazi writes, "Over 2 years, the researchers engaged 6,000 Americans through national surveys, regional deep dives, interviews, and focus groups in 3 mid-sized, demographically shifting cities, and a majority of Americans, 70%, they say, they believe it's their responsibility to connect across lines of difference. 2/3 of respondents also agree that they can, quote, learn a lot from connecting with people who have different backgrounds and viewpoints than them, and many express interest in doing more so in the future. The report also finds that the more people engage in that connection, connecting with others different than them, the more they want to do it again. These experiences that they term connection cascades suggest that initial engagement can lead to a self-sustaining cycle of further connection. If you create opportunities for people to engage in social connection, they might be more likely to do that again of their own accord in the future." What was that about already having the tools we need? But wait, there's more. Because in addition to our curiosity, we also have hope. In this time of endemic cynicism, hope is an antidote. Says Jamil Zaki, Associate Professor of Psychology in the School of Humanities and Sciences and Director of the Stanford Social Neuroscience Laboratory. That's a fancy title. So apparently they must know what they're talking about. "The cynical voice inside each of us claims that we already know everything about people. But Zaki found that not only is cynicism harmful, it's actually astonishingly naive and uninformed. We're lying to ourselves about other people that we see, and we're doing it regularly to our own detriment." He and his fellow researchers surveyed Stanford undergrads. Anybody go to Stanford? No Stanford? One? Okay. Well, you can tell me whether this rings true for you. He asked them how much they cared about their peers, whether they enjoyed helping other people, and if they wanted to connect with students they didn't know. And he also asked them questions about their perceptions of other students at Stanford. And we discovered one, he says, not one, but 2 Stanfords. Quote, "One was real, made up of students' self-reports. This campus was extraordinarily warm. 85% of students said they wanted to meet new friends. 95% said they enjoyed helping peers who were feeling down, and their empathy was through the roof. But what they thought about other students, people in their community, was revealing for our current social milieu. Quote, they believed their average peer was relatively unfriendly, judgmental, and callous. And as a result, they were disinclined to reach out to form connections. This leaves me wondering, what are our inner cynics keeping us from finding out about our neighbors? And in particular, the ones who seem more different than us. What might we be getting wrong? All right, so what are we going to do with all these studies and this research and these findings other than just nerding out on a Sunday, waiting for the storm to hit? What are we going to do with this knowledge? Why know it? Well, because knowledge helps us form decisions, come to new conclusions, act. So how should we act? What should we do? Yeah, that's not a question I'm going to answer for you, actually, for us. But I can share what acting has looked like and felt like for others, and maybe in sifting through those, you might find a nugget of something that's inspiring or ideas that you might want to try. And I'll start with a low-hanging fruit. What is Green Mountain Justice doing and why? Green Mountain Justice was founded by Tom Morgan, who many of you know served this congregation as community minister. Green Mountain Justice was born out of the experience of the power of connection. Its mission is to care, connect, and collaborate in the service of justice by centering the needs, perspectives, experiences, and stories of folks who have been marginalized in our community. We connect with folks around us who are being left behind, ignored, pushed aside, and rejected. From his work with our neighbors who are unhoused and housing insecure, both before and during his internship as community minister here and since, Tom has described experiencing directly the power of building connections with people who are different from him. Their stories enrich and enrage, their experiences inform and infuriate, and their resilience and brilliance and creativity, their humanness, touch and connect. And what becomes clear in this work is that there is an essential element missing in how we are responding to the housing crisis, the crisis in services, the crisis in connection, and that is connection itself. The challenges we face aren't the result of some policy gone awry, some box that we didn't check in a committee room, or some code failure. Rather, our failure to deliver on a community in which all of our neighbors can access even the basics of food and shelter comes down to the fact that we are trying to dream up a perfect system instead of just being good, instead of connecting, and instead of seeing. And it isn't just Tom who finds this, by the way. Working alongside our unhoused neighbors here in Middlebury and beyond. A student who I placed full-time last summer as part of a program that I manage in the summertime for the college at Charterhouse had this to share about the impact of her experiences working there. She's from Minneapolis, by the way. Being involved in Charterhouse and connecting with the people there has made me feel like a true part of the Middlebury community and offered me a sense of belonging, deeper than I would have had just through the college. Working at Charterhouse. Hearing their stories has given me a greater perspective on what is happening around me and encouraged me to continue seeking out connections regardless of perceived difference. This experience that she describes transcends demographics, perspectives, positionality. Today she's grieving somebody she worked with this summer who we lost this week at Charterhouse. The student from Minneapolis. It transcends because it's deeply human. We connect. That is fundamentally the most essential thing. And where those connections are made, care comes. And what is care if not love? And what is love if not right? If not justice? Now, I'm not saying connection is easy. I have known some very difficult neighbors. You may have some too. Vermont isn't known for having the friendliest neighbors. But rather that even our most curmudgeonly neighbors will help chop a load of firewood, plow out a driveway, jumpstart a car, right? A lot of nods. You've experienced this, haven't you? We sometimes might get prickly, but we understand at our core that we need each other to get by and that connection still matters. At Green Mountain Justice, we don't tone police, we listen. We don't seek an excuse, we seek an explanation. We find that nuance and complexity and the reality that a multiplicity of conflicting things can all be true is just the way of things. That people are beautiful and terrible and wild and chaotic and sweet and terrifying and funny and annoying and loving and sad and joyful and infuriating and creative and complex and mean and loving and difficult and inspiring. That what we can do is connect. That addressing these challenges needs not a system of services, a closet of donations, a shelf of food, but a ministry of care and love. By focusing on connection, by centering the humanity of those with whom we are working, and by grounding our work in our UU faith, we are reforging relationships that can enrich not just the lives of those we are claiming to serve, but our own. We are rejecting the transactional for the relational. By centering them, not ourselves and our systems, we are beginning to understand what Lilla Watson says is the wisdom of the collective, that our liberation is in fact bound up in the liberation of others. I want to read that for a second because I think it's really important. If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come here because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. Helping others is actually helping ourselves. And there is meaning and joy and struggle that matter in the meeting and the doing and the striving together. And that is what Green Mountain Justice is up to. If that sounds good to you, I encourage you to get to know our work. I'm not here telling the stories of these folks in our communities because they're theirs to tell, not mine. And they do tell them. By the way, if you want to listen to the stories of some of the neighbors that we're working with that you may not know, you can start in the comfort of your own home listening to our Voices from the Edge podcast, which Michaela Lafrac and her producer found so compelling that they dedicated a Vermont Edition episode to it. You can give it a try, see what you think. If you're inspired, consider joining our Neighbor Care Network, make a connection or two. There's been information about that, I think, circulating in the weekly blast, right? And there are so many ways to be in this together. We're a new board. Come help us out. Help us build organizational capacity. We have committees that need peopling, if committees are your jam. You can dig deeper into what's going on, how your life might be enriched through these connections. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not. How will you know if you don't try? As for this congregation writ large, well, what we do together in this moment is up to all of us. We can decide our path. I'm not here to pitch one. I am here to pitch one thing, and one thing only, and that's that we strive to connect. Because in this moment, in the face of everything that is trying to tear us apart, connection is what's radical. This isn't just my invitation. I'm going to leave you with one thing that I will share from our neighbors, since it fits so well here. One of the folks in our neighbor care ecosystem asked Green Mountain Justice to share out a New Year's resolution that he wrote. And I can think of no better thoughts to leave you with. Here it is, quote, "For citizens of these nations, we resolve to reject passivity and cynicism. Citizenship is an interconnected world. In an interconnected world is not limited to voting or obedience. It includes attention, discernment, and moral courage. We resolve to resist narratives that reduce other people to enemies, abstractions, or threats. We resolve to hold our institutions accountable not only for national success, but for global responsibility. We resolve to live in ways that align with the future we claim to want, reducing harm, valuing truth, refusing to normalize cruelty or indifference. We resolve to remember that culture, consumption, and consent shape power as surely as laws and weapons do. We acknowledge that ordinary lives aggregated across billions of people determine whether systems become humane or destructive. Participation is unavoidable. The only question is whether it is conscious." We resolve together to act as co-authors of a livable and sustainable future rather than as rivals racing toward collapse. Equity is not an abstract moral luxury, it is a consistent condition for stability. Sustainability is not a concession, it is a requirement of reality, and peace is not the absence of conflict alone, but the presence of systems that allow all to survive and to contribute with dignity. In 2026, we resolve to live as if relationship is primary. Truth requires care, and power carries responsibility. We do not promise perfection, we promise participation, attentive, ethical, and informed by the knowledge that what we do next will shape the world we all must inhabit. This is not a resolution for one nation or one people. It is a resolution for a shared world still in the process of becoming, end quote. That's somebody I want to know better. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, as he says, it has been a week, month, a year. So let's just take a minute and feel your body. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your hands, move around, whatever you don't feel. You have a body, feel it. Whew. Take a deep breath. You can move as you want to feel the air come into your body. And let out some tension. Okay. I have a special guest with me today that hasn't been here in a little while, and so some of you might not know them yet, but they really like to hide. So, does anybody see a little pig? Jean sees, oh, Terry sees it. Terry, where are they hiding? Do I have a smaller human who might want to, hey, Spencer and Esri, can you help me find Jet Pig? Can you help me find, I've been told that they might be over here. You saw it? Can you bring them to me? Yeah, go ahead. Thank you everybody. Oh, Jet Pig, you were hiding. Okay, so Jet Pig hasn't been here in a little while, so for those of you who are new or may not have known Jet Pig, this is Jet Pig. They go by they, them pronouns. I didn't say my name. I'm Julia. I go by she, her pronouns. And Jet Pig actually stands for our Unitarian Universalist values. So, does anybody know what the J stands for? Justice. All right. Then we've got an E. Equity. All right, what's next? T. Transformation, the P for pig, of course. No, what is P for? Pluralism, and then we've got an I. Interdependence, yes. We get a little confused sometimes. Reverend Trish and I were discussing, is it inclusion or is interdependence? It could be both. And then we're ending with a G, which is generosity. Well done. And what is at the center? Love. So our Jet Pig here has a little backpack, but a lot of the times it's fueled by love. So sometimes Jet Pig has a fuel pack on that's fueled by love and goes flying through the air. So I wanted to bring Jet Pig out today to ground us in these values, and also because Jet Pig wanted to join us and had some questions. So hang on. What were your questions? Okay, so starting with that, Jet Pig was listening along with everybody else, and is wondering, in terms of connection, how do we connect here at CVUUS? What does that look like? Does anybody have some ideas for Jet Pig? Hugo. We come together every Sunday. That's the most obvious one, right? We are here, you are here. Even the people on Zoom are, in here in the interwebs. They're streaming in. Let's see. Yeah, Lise. We rolled dough together at the Rhubarb Festival, making pies together. That's actually a time-honored way to do things together, right? To connect. To cook together is really powerful. right? And I know others cook together for Charter House and for other places. Anything else? How else do we come together? We sing together. I love to sing. And thank you to the choir. Jake. Game night on the third Friday of every month. I've seen there's a lot of people at game night hanging out and connecting. That's really cool. Anything else? How else do we connect? Laura. We do. We invite our larger community in to use our space. So the building is in use a lot of the time. I don't know if you all know this, but it becomes like a traffic jam issue sometimes with groups in and out all the time. So that's great. Anything else? Committee work? Yes? Yeah. There's the Let's Eat Together on the fourth Tuesday of the month. I'm also going to highlight Fellowship Hour afterwards because there's always good food down there. And people make it and share it, and that's awesome. All right, anything else? We connect to show up, is that? Yes, we show up. Yeah. All right, I think Jet Pig had another question. Let's see. Okay, I will. Okay, all right. So Jet Pig noted that it starts with J, right? And the J, as we said, is for justice. And the theme of this service is social justice. So how does justice show up at CVUUS? Or, there's two ways you could answer this. How do we want justice to show up at CVUUS? We provide a safe community for anybody, no matter what their needs are. And I get to see David smile this morning, which makes me happy too. Anybody else? That's an important one. We feed each other, I think, is a big thing. During fellowship hour, Charter House, other times. Any other? How do we want justice to show up at CVUUS? Yeah. We do. We share our offerings with other organizations in the community. And we have great connections with a lot of those organizations. Anybody else? Yeah, Rich. Bobby Loney is on Zoom and says we have a writing group. It's good I can't see you, but I'm glad you're there. Thank you for sharing, Bobby. All right, Dorothy.
We have a lot of people in the congregation that are working in various ways with respect to unhoused people and thinking hard about how we can do more.
Yeah, so we have a lot of people in the congregation who are working in different ways, and especially on how to support unhoused people, right? And it's there's a seed group, I believe, and so I believe it's Mary and Dorothy you can talk to about, and I'm missing one person who you could talk to about that, but I'm sure it'll come up if you have questions about wanting to be involved in that. You can even let me or one of the ministers know, and we can connect you to the right person. Rich. Yes. So Reverend Johanna, our emeritus minister, says we live out our principles and show up in the community. Did I get that right, Rich? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Reverend Johanna. Anyone else? Oh, over here. In the social justice ministry, which I'm going to let Mary talk about a bit more because I think that's what she's going to go into. But yes, for sure. Colleen. Yes, so the Interfaith, say it one more time for me. The Interfaith Housing Council, which we're part of in the community, and they use our space. Did I get that all? And Jean Terwilliger is chair. Sorry, Jean, I'm tripping over. And Mike Greenwood. See, I didn't know all this. This is awesome. I love this. Look at everything we are doing so far, and we can just keep doing more. And I am so happy to see you today. It was Good to get Jet Pig back in the sanctuary. And yeah, so we're going to move on to the offering. Thank you all.
So as you may know, this Sunday our offering is different. We are sharing our plate this Sunday with Green Mountain Justice, and I've shared a little bit about Green Mountain Justice and our approach to caring for and working with our neighbors. Financial support like this helps us to provide the things that can fill in the cracks that need opens. Gas cards to get someone to work, or a critical appointment, or their child to child care, grocery cards to feed an empty belly, or a gaggle of them, a waterproof insulated jacket that converts into a sleeping bag to provide emergency protection and shelter from the cold and the wet that we have a little bit of here in Vermont sometimes. Card for Junebug to get clothing for a child. Yes, money can help with these basic but life-sustaining material needs, and it matters. And I hope your donation is also a bridge and an opportunity to consider how you might build on that basic connection, because even a transaction can blossom into a relationship if we and when we feed it. So thank you.
Thank you for your generosity. We have a lot of yellow cards today, so fasten your seatbelts. The first one I have is from Lise Anderson, who says, regarding making our community safer for immigrants, you may have heard about the signs of solidarity conversations that indivisible folks are having with area businesses. If you would like to help businesses know their rights in case of ICE, see Lise, know their basic rights, sorry. In case of ICE, see Lise Anderson. Maybe Lise, I don't know where, Lise is raising her hand right now. Okay. And I have a feeling some of what I have might be duplicates, so let me just get organized here for a second. So we received some by email. I will do my best. Jake Levin shares, I am so distraught and disgusted with this administration. The cruelty that ICE is displaying is inhumane and dystopian. I can't even begin to say or express how much it breaks my heart and shatters my spirit. I'm going to leave you with this thought to ponder. If ICE is carrying out these abhorrent actions towards U.S. citizens in broad daylight, imagine what they're doing to our immigrant neighbors behind closed doors. Keep up the fight. We need everyone. Oh, well said. Liam Batchis shares, I had an inspiring talk with my son this morning, who lives in Adelaide, South Australia. When the leaders of the International Writers' Festival tried to censor Randa Abdel Fattah, a Palestinian author, other writers withdrew from the festival. The population of Adelaide resisted this attempt at censorship, and within hours of the announcement, bookstores within South Australia sold out copies of Randa Abdel Fattah's writing, as well as the work of authors who stood with her. Now there's a new board in charge of the Writers' Festival, and Randa will be the keynote speaker next year. Such is the power of collective resistance. I appreciated hearing this inspiring news from my son and wondered how I can be a part of similar efforts protesting for justice. I'm sure my UU friends have some ideas about how we can resist together. You might just hear more about that. Jean Terwilliger says, my heart is with the people of Minneapolis who are suffering under the occupation of ICE. And I am thankful to all those from Minneapolis and around the country, including my sister Jill, who are protesting in every way they can. We have joys and concerns for the housing group. The joy is that the housing group grew out of a social justice book group's desire to have a direct impact on the housing crisis in Addison County. We've met every few months over the past 2 years and have focused our work on spreading the word about ADUs, tiny or small homes, and home share VT to have an immediate impact. We conducted 4 community events, 2 in Middlebury, 1 in Vergennes, and 1 in Bristol. All totaled, some 143 individuals have attended 1 or more of our information sessions. The concern is that it's been challenging to find concrete ways for the group and congregation to have an impact that is within our capacity. Could we buy a house and become a developer, or should we continue with our advocacy work? We're working with several other Addison County service organizations to figure out how we can assist with the development of additional living units. That was from Jean Terwilliger and Mike Greenwood. This next one is from Karen Cooper of the Food Security Group. And Karen writes, I'm grateful for all the volunteers who help open, close, and stock our community cupboard, despite the ice, snow, and freezing temperatures. Thanks also to everyone who has donated items to keep our shelves stocked. We've become a valuable community resource, and many days our shelves are nearly emptied. We are now open 4 days a week, but we need food donations to meet the level of use we are currently seeing. If you have the resources to donate, we now have mini grocery lists of our most popular items printed up for you to take home as a reminder. The lists are in a bag taped to the shopping cart in the lobby and will also be downstairs on the table during social hour. Thank you in advance for your help and donations. There are so many problems in the world today that seem too big or too complicated to even try to tackle. So it's easy to get frustrated and overwhelmed and just want to tune out. Instead, I try to focus and find one small thing I can do that makes me feel like I'm making a difference. This work that we're doing, it really does. We're feeding members of our community who would otherwise go hungry, and in our little corner of the world, we are making a difference. And this next one is from Andrea Sambrook and the LGBTQIA+ Seed Group. In the month of January, there are ongoing efforts by young adult leaders in our queer community and allies who are working to rebuild a new group at CVUUS, both for the moment and for the future. Liam, Gordon, and Andrea are supporting this ground-up reboot that will have a new name and an abundant, clear, and inclusive purpose for LGBTQIA+ folks and allies too. And as the heart-shattering news of the day swirls and roars in our ears and on our phones, please take one small moment and send a text, a call, or a letter to check on someone you know in the LGBTQIA+ or BIPOC community to say, how is your heart today? I'm thinking about you. and in the spirit of the following quote by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. There will be she also adds that there will be a singing group on Tuesday, January 27th at 7 p.m. at Otter Creek Yoga in the Marble Works to sing for liberation with Joanna Caldwell. The next is from the Morgan family, who asked for several prayers. Prayers for the Reverend Dr. Brock Leach and his family. Brock was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor on Friday and will be having surgery tomorrow. Please pray and send loving energy to him, his wife Julie, and his entire family. If ever the term blessing applied to a human, Brock is such a blessing to our community of communities. Prayers for Irena as she is returning from the memorial service of her aunt who passed away in Maryland. Deaths of elders are particularly hard for immigrant families, and Irena suffered a lot of loss in the past couple of years. And also prayers for the hundreds of Vermonters that will suffer through this winter because of systems built and sustained by the privileged that have failed to provide sufficient warmth or shelter. Green Mountain Justice is glad to be part of the creation of about 200 more warm spaces this winter, but it's not equity and it's not justice. We must do better. And then we have from Michelle Lowy, the Unhoused Support Seed Group is beginning a 5-hour training on working with the unhoused this Sunday. 16 members of the community will be participating in the training. Several members of the congregation have been hosting extra days at Gather, which would otherwise not be open, to support residents of Charter House. And that was our last yellow card. So that was a lot. Thank you for your patience. And as always, some of us might have joys or concerns or things that are troubling us that have not been given space right now. So we're going to have a few seconds of silence to think about those things and send out, if you don't have any concerns, send out some supportive vibes to those who do. I hope everyone that has an unspoken concern can find some comfort here. What I'd like to do now is tell you a very brief story, which I totally failed to actually print out for myself, so I'm going to try to read it off the slide. A man and a woman were fishing on a riverbank, when they saw a woman struggling in the current and rescued her. Soon they saw a man struggling, and they rescued him. This continued all afternoon. Finally, the exhausted pair decided to go upstream to find out where and why so many people were falling into the river. They discovered a beautiful overlook along the river's edge without any warning signs or protective barriers. I've run into this story a bunch of times in my professional field, which is public health. And it's public health's way of saying, you know, what we do is we work on what's called the social determinants of health. And honestly, we often tell this story to sort of pat ourselves on the back, like, oh, aren't we so smart, you know, like going upstream. But I want to connect this story to social justice. Because if we can think about, for instance, housing, working upstream is, you know, lobbying the legislature to change zoning, you know, working with developers to build more housing. That's important. But to be honest with you, it's just as important to give a sleeping bag and a coat and a warm drink to someone who's sleeping outside. There are so many ways to get involved in social justice, and they're all needed and they're all good. It is definitely a team activity. And if we can think about this sort of riverbank story, to solve this problem, yes, we needed people to make a sign. We need somebody with carpentry skills and tools to make the sign. We could also really use someone who could translate the sign into multiple languages, so everyone visiting the overlook will be protected. And We also need someone to teach people to read so that they can read the sign. And we also do need someone who's a strong swimmer to rescue the people that fall in. And I think that there's room for everybody in social justice. And the important thing, it's a long haul, and it needs to be sustainable. And some people can go out and protest in March for hours in cold weather, and some people can't. Other people are willing to pick up the phone and make phone calls, and other people don't want to do that. And there's a role for everybody. And to me, I think the important thing is figuring out what, for you, makes sense with your capabilities, your interests, your physical limitations. And whatever contribution we make is important in some way.
I recognize that we're going a little bit long, and I apologize in advance for that, but I think it's important work, and hopefully you're not real anxious to get out in the cold weather. I'm Mary Hadley. I use she, them pronouns, and I've been attending CVUUS since my family moved from Virginia to Middlebury in 2009, and I became a member a few years after that. I'm speaking today based on my role as the current leader of the social justice ministry. And my intention is to share a little bit of our journey, our history, remind some folks of more recent work, and invite each of you to join us as we expand our collective congregational social justice, building on the things that Jason and Pam already spoke about and what many of the yellow cards represented. When I first arrived here, I needed and wanted many things from CVUUS. And fortunately, I was able to get what I needed from strangers who pointed me in the right direction, to friends I've met, Sunday services and lay-led community groups that fed and enlightened me, the RE offering, and all of you on the community who have cared for my now 25-year-old son, Peter. Over time, I've become more directly involved and served in and led in various ways all around CVUUS. And my hope is that each of you has or finds a way into these types of collective congregational connections. CVUS recently celebrated 40 years as a congregation, and I can say from talking to folks and seeing many historical documents that social justice work has been in the minds and with the hands of the founders and congregants for a long time. Without naming the long list, we would be here all day. I'll just say that what I call death with dignity and marriage equity and equality and UU the vote are some of the bigger initiatives that CVUS was heavily involved in. Particularly since the pandemic and over the last several years, CVUUS has worked to educate ourselves, rededicate ourselves to collective social justice work, and be more intentional about being increasingly visible in the wider community. Think bright yellow shirts. A few years ago, as mentioned in the yellow card, we hosted book groups and read and discussed books about various marginalized groups, including about racism, being anti-racist, and the unhoused community. And then I think around 2022, the affordable housing group started just with CVUS folks, and then again, as indicated in the yellow card, reached out to other faith communities, and so the Addison County Interfaith Affordable Housing Alliance has hosted the sessions that we heard about and done things for things like accessory dwelling units, Home Share Vermont, and tiny homes. Then in March 2023, as part of the 8th Principle initiatives, the congregation adopted our CVUUS covenant to dismantle racism and other oppressions. The covenant states, "We commit to journey toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community through our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions." In March 2024, led by the Council of Ministries, which I was one of the co-conveners at that time, we had Paula Cole-Jones visit us via Zoom in the sanctuary to do her Building a Culture of Inclusion workshop with about 50 people from the congregation attending. And then a good deal of activity occurred in the 24-25 church year, starting with, as Jason mentioned, Tom Morgan's shift from being just a congregant to his intern and community minister year. And while he was doing that, he led several worship services. He was leading the Mosaic Task Force, which had a couple different names through the course of the year. We worked on accelerating multiculturalism with Brock Leach, who was mentioned in the yellow cards as well today, so we had some personal interactions with him, and groups such as Queerly Beloved and some other caring neighbor partnerships began. So now, in our current church year, Tom has finished his year as the intern and community minister, and as Jason mentioned, leads the Green Mountain Justice Organization. So as part of establishing the new social justice ministry in November of 2024, so a little bit over a year ago, the CVUUS Board of Trustees adopted this statement. CVUUS affirms that collective social justice action is integral to the tradition of our Unitarian Universalist faith and necessary for demonstrating our values in our community. As part of CVUUS, our social justice ministry will serve by centering the needs of the oppressed and marginalized, orchestrating social justice planning and actions, and creating opportunities for CVUUS to put our faith into action in and beyond the walls of our congregation. The social justice ministry repeats this at the start of each of our meetings to remind us of this important call. Also during 24-25, a group of us participated with Paula Cole-Jones again and congregations from around the country in something called Shaping the Leading Edge and Community of Communities work. And then we worked with several of the committees and teams here at CVUUS last spring to think about how to be more thoughtful and inclusive, hopefully bringing more voices and folks in than we maybe have in the past. Whether from your own experience, listening to the Pathways to Connections, or reading the Weekly Blast, or if you look at our website, the list of organizations we partner with is long and involved with various social action activities. The Social Justice Ministry, in conjunction with Reverend Christina, held congregation-wide worship workshops in March and May last year to help encourage education about and additional participation in collective social justice at CVUUS. The vision is, and what's a bit different than in the past, is to grow from a charity do-for-you model to a more justice solidarity action together, where more folks are engaged in the work than ever before. The structure is that there's a team identified as the Social Justice Ministry. We meet every month to conduct the business of growing social justice, but the real work is accomplished by what we've termed as the various seed groups, and hopefully the table toppers in the fellowship hall have given an opportunity to explain that a little bit. Our hope is that justice work is seen as part of the whole congregation, an integral part of what this congregation does, that everyone here will feel compelled based on what is happening in our world, what is breaking our hearts, where we are called to be in community with folks, to consider participation in one or more of these seed groups in collective action together. So just to regroup what those currently active seed groups are, and a little bit of what they do. So first is housing security, which we've mentioned a couple of times. That's looking at ways to provide housing. Food security, which includes the Charles Avenue Community Cupboard, Charter House Meals, Hope, Crop Walk, lots of different things like that. The LGBTQIA organization, which hosted the Building Beloved Community Beyond the Binary sessions last April, has queer support groups, works with the Pride Parade and other things like that. The Migrant Justice Group, which is working on information around ICE, as was mentioned in one of the yellow cards, the Mexican consulate visit, English language lessons, and other types of migrant support. And most recently, as a result of the concern for the guests who had been camping on our campus, the Unhoused Support Group, which is working on direct support, participating with Green Mountain Justice, and partnering with others such as Gather and Charter House. And finally, there's the donations team, which has existed for quite a while, but is now part of the Social Justice Ministry as well, who works on determining monthly donees. So if you'd like more information about any of these groups, or you're ready to get engaged, come see me during coffee hour or reach out at any time and I'll happily connect you. What would I like you to take away from my time here today? That we have a great past in the realm of social justice, that lately we've done an amount of education and foundation laying to prepare us to move with more intention, and now is the time to mobilize and engage even more as a collective congregation in the heart-filled work of living social justice into being. May it be so. now is our time for Pathways to Connection, which normally can be quite extensive, but I think we've dealt with nearly all those things multiple times already today. So I just do want to mention there's all the things on the back of the order of service and the music and et cetera team that seems to be all over things in this Carl's Bleak Midwinter here is having a Valentine's Day open mic night on Saturday, February 14th at 7 p.m. open to all ages and guests. So if you have something you're interested in, talk with Carol Hardin. Now we're going to sing a hymn, Building a New Way. The words are on the screen.
I don't have. Oops. All right. I don't have these. Hang on. Oh yeah, my phone's not in worship mode. No, it is, but it's not off. Ooh, I gotta navigate a spreadsheet. Okay, here we go. I got it now. We're so fast today. Leave this place with hope rekindled, not as wishful thinking, but as stubborn practice. In a world drenched with despair, choose joy. Choose action. Choose to believe another way is possible and live as if it's already breaking through. Yeah, that's it.
All right, while I ask Julia up to extinguish the chalice, we can read the words that are printed in the order of service or on the slide. We extinguish this flame, remembering always to keep love at the center.